So tonight's speaker series presentation is by Chris and Kim Chisholm. And the title is Happening Right in Your Backyard. And we will hear more about that from Chris and Kim. So take it away.
Primarily showing up. So I'm Chris Chisholm.
And I'm Kim.
And
Hi.
we live, just west of First Christian Church, down here in the valley of Puyallup, next to Clark's Creek Park. And the name that Robin and I came up with for tonight's presentation is Happening Right in Your Backyard, which is a little bit of a play on words because it's partially what's happening in everybody's backyard, but also what's happening over here, which is in the sense of those of you that are in the Puyallup and Tacoma area, it's sort of right in your backyard in that way. Because there are a lot of things going on here in our yard and next door in the Meeker Creek Restoration Project, which Kim will talk about a little bit because it's connected to her family history. So first want to, what we do is rather unique and complicated. So I'll just start with 25 years ago this year, I founded Wolf Camp and School of Natural Science up in Bellingham, Lummi Island. And it grew from sort of just out of a prayer out in the wilderness, and came to me that I thought, oh, someday, when I'm about 60 something, I might know enough about nature to start teaching this stuff. And then of course, what happens when you set that intention is that's dear, a true heart intention, it starts manifesting itself. And I think that was in the summer. And then in the fall, people, I've been teaching at a Waldorf school up in Bellingham, and parents started asking me to take their kids after school, go outside. The next summer, somebody was like, you should do a summer camp. So we did a kids' day camp. It was absolutely magical. It's so much fun. And then the following year, I did a couple of overnight camps. And then the following year, more adult. I had been doing some adult workshops. Wildlife tracking was my favorite thing to do in the world, and wilderness survival and language of the birds, which I'm going to do a little bit here today. And then more adult programs. And then I married into Puyallup in 2009, and we bought Kim's grandparents' old home. It was built in 1902, and they bought it in 1960 from the Dickey Farm family. And I think I'll turn it over to Kim on talking about this land.
I grew up over on Fruitland Avenue, and so we would come down here all the time. And so it was really an amazing gift to be able to purchase the land out of our family trust. What was really interesting about it is it used to be about 10 or 11 acres. And then several years ago, when my grandma was still alive, she had a knock at the door, and someone said, hey, we would like to buy 10 acres of your land, or about 10 acres, and donate it to the city for a restoration project. And she thought that was a brilliant idea. So that's what she did. And it ended up being a Walmart purchase because they had destroyed some wetlands up on the hill, and they needed to mitigate that. Thank you. And so the real thing was this whole area around our house, the land was all like hay fields. And so they just have to have it hayed every year so that it wasn't a fire danger in the summer. Fire department would come around and say, got to take it out. So they would. And
it would flood every winter from Meeker Ditch.
Yep.
And our garage would flood a couple of times before that was all.
Mm-hmm. And so it's really a wonderful thing, we think. And because now, since this has been done, we haven't had as much flooding. And for my part, the part that's kind of near and dear to my heart is that there is such an increase in the amount of wildlife and the birds that move through here. So we're getting a lot more nesting neotropical migrants, and just so much activity, so much wildlife. And it's just such a gift to have that within the city for everyone to be able to enjoy. So.
Yeah, it's only been 4 or 5 years since they carved out the ditch and turned it into a working stream
creek
from 14th Street Southwest to Clark's Creek. It's turned out brilliantly.
Yep.
Salmon have been much happier, much more prolific, coming up all the way up the ditch and up Silver Creek. Any of you have walked through that property, which was done 5 years prior to that. So probably about 10 or 15 years ago now. Yeah. So a lot of good restoration projects happening right in your backyard here in Puyallup.
Yes.
For salmon restoration, flood control, and also just
Supporting the
general,
local
yeah.
wildlife.
Mhm.
And just making people feel better, because I don't know about you all, but when there's green space out there and I'm near it or in it, I just feel so much better.
Well,
place
we
to
are
be.
about to start. What we're going to do is tour what's going on here. By the way, Kim named this property after we bought it, Blue Sky Farm.
Right.
And so we're Wolf Camp and School of Natural Science at Blue Sky Farm now.
Yeah.
So
That's all I was named after.
now let's get that and just
Okay.
go. We're going to launch right
Okay.
into our
All
tour.
right.
So some of the
Oh.
things we're going to show you what we're doing here on the farm. We're going to have on every Sunday, starting in June, a farm stand out on 14th Street Southwest. And there's already eggs being sold 1 block down, and then 2 blocks down. Joy and Donna bought Second Star Farm, well,
Mhm.
which used to be old Farmer Bob's property
Mhm.
next to the fish hatchery, and they probably will have a farm stand again this year. So we're kind of turning 14th Street Southwest into a bit of a
A
farm stand.
destination too.
I had to work with city council
Yeah.
for a while to get them to change the laws, because it was illegal for anyone to sell any of their produce from their property in Puyallup, because, back in the day when cities changed all the laws to outlaw anything that wasn't modern, I guess, or something. So now it is back to where you can sell your produce from your property,
Mhm.
and you don't even need a permit if you do it less than 30 days out of the year. So more than
Pretty
30 days, you need a farm stand permit. Anyway, so we're going to show you some of those things, but also all the things that are growing in everybody's yard, some of the beneficial weeds that are even more nutritious than the stuff you're trying to grow in your garden, and the native plants and trees. We've tried to install all sorts of native plants and trees here, and which will bring in a lot of the
Sorry about the helicopter.
yeah,
going
if you
over.
look out your window, there's a helicopter going across the Puyallup skies, which you'll probably hear some of that background here. Before we start our tour, does anybody have any questions about, did it make sense, what Wolf Camp is, Wolf Camp and School of Natural Science, and or Blue Sky Farm, or anything about us that you want to ask about before we launch into our tour?
Just tell us a little bit, just like narrow it down to where you are. You're on 14th Avenue, but from the church, I think we can kind of just go down 9th Avenue to 14th, and you take a right, kind of, right? Down
Take a
that way.
Take a left, yeah, so go down
Take a left, yeah.
toward Clark's Creek on 9th Avenue Southwest, and turn left on 14th Street Southwest, head toward the fish hatchery, and we're the old White House set way back from the road,
Yeah.
with our orchard out in front.
Mounds.
We're going to end at our orchard today and show you.
That just kind of gives us a visual of where you guys are. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And definitely have to tell about our orchard, because when we were first building it, people thought we were digging a massive foundation for some huge building, and they were like, "What's going in here?" And like, it's okay, it's just going to be trees. It was a massive rain garden, which I'll tell you about when we get out there.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with one of our main crops that we grow here, that grow incredible down here in the wetlands, is strawberries, as well as blueberries and other things that love acidic wetland soil. And so during the winter, we put all of our strawberry starts right here on the south side.
There you go.
South side of the house. I'll go up really close. And there's native strawberries that you can find little patches of here and there. But these, of course, we got from Burnt Ridge Nursery.
Couple
organic.
Yeah.
I don't know how many generations
Yeah, we have
ago.
some white strawberries too this year, so that'll be really fun.
So you might notice the leaf structure there has serrated edges.
I don't know
And
if you guys can see, if y'all can see that.
it's not everything in threes is poisonous, as you can see. A lot of things that are in threes are wonderful, delectable edibles. And look at this, there's even a flower already on that strawberry right there.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, so we don't always keep them in pots, but we were switching some things around in the orchard, so we potted up a bunch of the straws, and we do have a bunch of them that are still out there too, and then we'll replant these as we can. So, but yeah, strawberries do really, really well. So that's one of the kind of cultivated plants that we do.
You might wonder like how we designed this, and we designed it according to the principles of permaculture. which if you've ever heard of that, there are about 10 principles. And the first one is to observe and interact with your property for at least a year before you do anything, because everything's different in the winter and the summer.
Yeah, so if you're trying to plan, where you want to put your garden, you need to make sure where the water is going to be coming from and where the wind comes from and the sun and the shade and all that good stuff. So if you just go crazy and plant it, you might have missed something that would really be detrimental to it or not be
Definitely.
beneficial.
Yeah.
So.
And you discover things every year, of
So
course.
permaculture stands for permanent agriculture. The idea is to live sustainably with what you have on your land the best that you can.
And use appropriate technologies for creating your own energy and things like that. One of the things right here you might notice is our bird feeders. This is sort of a permaculture to their zone 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 1 is just what's studied. And right now we have some beautiful birds at the feeders, and we study all these too, can bring in
Chris, I think you guys have frozen.
Oh, sorry, I'm scaring them all away. I do some suet because we get a lot of woodpeckers here. Super cool. And this is just for peanuts, but it's got a little and get it that is not supposed to. So we have a lot of chickadees that go over and get it. A lot of bush tick, and we just get a ton of bird life, which is really wonderful.
Let's listen to this. Any questions about birds? Kim studied birds at the University of Washington.
Yeah, my background was wildlife science in the College of Forest Resources and focused on birds, but lots of plants and trees and bugs and everything in between.
If you have to see anything about crows, Kim studied with Professor Mashloff the first year he was at UW, right? He was kind of the crow specialist that discovered how brilliant they are. And
well, we knew that.
Anyway, if you don't or have never
it.
noticed anything about crows in the past that are on YouTube or whatever else, you'll notice that it's mostly his work.
A lot of it, yeah. So if you have any crow questions or any other bird questions, I'm happy to talk about.
Does anybody have any questions about the birds of your backyard or feeders and things like that? Yeah, we see a hand. Go for it.
Well, last year I saw, and I called it a river of murder, and it kept going over my house, and it was the crows before sunset, and they did it every night. And so I Googled that, and that was very interesting. That's the first time I've seen that. That was amazing. The other thing was, do you have hummingbird feeders? That's it.
I do.
Okay, good. I mean, that's the only thing I have because I love that. Oh yeah, okay. Because I love the hummingbirds.
Yeah, definitely. So just to let everybody know, crows are really interesting. They're communal nesters. And so you can get a crow nest or a crow sleeping area that has got 100,000 or 150,000 crows. And so they'll travel from all over and they will meet in staging areas on the way there. And people think that or scientists believe that they're sharing information about where cool dead things are, or good food or water source or whatever. And then they fly together into their night roost overnight, and then fly back out. And then during the breeding season, the breeding birds will stay on their territory, and then the juveniles will go into the night roost. But they do it at the same time of night, just like you said, and it gets to be really, really loud. And if you're one of the if they love to stage by your house, I see it as a gift because it is so incredibly beautiful to me, the crow song. They're one of our larger songbirds, the raven being the largest songbird, which I think is awesome. And yeah, so crows, very, very intelligent birds.
And we've also noticed that just starting last year, the River of Crows River Murder was starting to go over 14th Street Southwest, heading, I don't know, toward the maybe north somewhere.
We've never
along the river.
But
one of the main ones people see is driving up 167 in Kent, along the right near the what's the name of
Emerald-
the
the
racehorse racetrack?
Emerald Downs.
Emerald Downs, right
Yeah.
there is one of their main either roosting or staging
It's a good
spots.
roosting spot. Yeah, and the Broadmoor Golf Course up at UW near the Arboretum was one of the really big ones.
And if you ever go to Bothell, just sit there and it's like million come over within like a half an hour, just nonstop. It's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so we head to, is that a bush tit? Or is it
yeah,
red?
that's a bush tit.
Oh,
there
oh,
was a
oh, yeah,
hummingbird.
that's right. There's a hummingbird feeder. If you, I always have a trick to identifying birds, and I'm gonna go just a little closer and slower. They love that sewer. So,
Suet.
did I say sewer? Love the suet. And if you ever see a little tiny bird that you can't identify because it's all gray, it's a bush tit around here. It's my little layman trick of identifying. Oh, I got a little close for him. See them from that far away? They're so tiny.
Or could you hear them?
Yeah. Oh, Robin should nod her head a little bit. Okay, let's move on to. Do you want to go over to the red flower and currant or over to the trees?
Let's go. Red flower and currant.
Red flower and currant.
Yay.
So
okay.
just a few plants that we've shrubs and stuff that we put in here. There were, of course, a lot of things that Kim's grandmother planted that she loved that weren't not necessarily native, but
So if you want to draw hummingbirds to your yard, the red flowering currant is one of our native currants, and they are just beautiful. It's not a fruit producer, but it's a gorgeous flower producer, and you will just draw them in like crazy. And it's just a lovely, lovely blossom, and it blossoms for a couple of
or
weeks.
cultivate salmonberry, which they go just as often to the salmonberry flowers
Yes, they do.
as to the red flower and currant
With our car in the
flowers.
background. Sorry.
And plus you get nice salmon berries. And of course, anything that's an edible berry is probably an edible flower. So I'm gonna,
Oh, I'm just
yeah,
holding
they're
it
starting
up
to drop.
the petals,
So I'm just gonna eat that.
which is very exciting.
Mhm.
So raise your hand if you've had salmon berries before, some of our native salmon berries or thimbleberries.
Mm.
Well, you are all in luck because guess what we did? We moved a whole bunch
Oh,
of them
yeah.
up along the sidewalk.
So
So
we
as you
know-
walk by,
Yeah, walk
once
by.
they're
It's part of the
blossoming.
Puyallup Loop Trail. All
Yeah.
Our sidewalk is out there. It's a permeable pavement that they created for part of the Puyallup Loop Trail in front of our house. And we just planted a huge row of wild and mix of wild and cultivated
there's a
raspberry
few
species.
cultivated raspberries,
The
but
rubus
Gen-
genus,
Mhm.
which is thimbleberries, salmonberries, blackberries, raspberries.
Yep.
All the knobby aggregate berries. So that should be crazy.
that'll be kind
out
of
there.
a little you pick.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
you pick. Should we head over to the trees?
Yes.
Okay, so the trees around here. Oh, can you grab the book?
Yep.
Thanks. We're gonna recommend a couple of books. It used to be really hard to figure things out, and now in the Pacific Northwest, coastal Pacific Northwest, we've got some books that are make it a lot quicker to identify species of animals and birds
Plants first.
and plants. Plus, we got the internet. So, has anybody downloaded the app iNaturalist or Seek by iNaturalist or anything by Cornell Lab of Ornithology? Oh, Spotlight. By the way, we're a little bit far from the Wi-Fi. Are we coming in okay still? Is that a yes? Oh, yay. Okay.
Great.
You were breaking up a little bit earlier, but you're good right now.
Okay. Forgot we moved the Wi-Fi to the other side of the house so we could go to the far edge or the other side of the property.
Yeah. So here are some books that we think are really important to.
Oh, no,
So
you're good. No, this is
I was
good.
going
Yeah,
to start
yeah.
with this
Yeah.
first. So
Mhm. Let's move
if
a
you
little
just
closer.
okay, if you're just interested in just to have a basic book in your pocket, one of the ones that we recommend is really super easy to carry. It's called Scats and Tracks of the Pacific Coast, including British Columbia, and
Written
you
by
can download it.
Halfpenny, James
There you go.
Halfpenny.
Yep.
And we are there's some nice, there's all sorts of animals that run along our fence on the other side.
Mhm.
And so hopefully we'll catch some tracks there.
Yeah, so that's a good one to go in your pocket. And each set of
Each
pages,
page.
this one's been used and loved a lot, is one single animal.
facing pages of Scats and Tracks.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one that we actually really love to take with us, I'll take it with me when I'm even hiking because I love it so much. It is called Wildlife of the Pacific Northwest, and it's written by one of our friends, David Moskowitz. He's a local guy, and he is just really cool and does a great job. And so this is going to be more in depth. It's going to have details about the natural history of all of the different animals. It'll have pictures. Here's a raccoon for you to see. So it's going to have the tracks. It'll talk about the different gaits that the animal does, and it'll show you actual pictures of the footprints, plus all the details of stride length and size and what they eat.
Yeah,
and where
when
they go
this
to the
was published 5
bathroom, and-
years ago, we were finally like, yes, we don't have to go to 4 different sources to figure a lot of
Yep,
things out.
it even
is
shows you
awesome.
scat, which is a nice name for animal poop.
Yep. So we're lucky for those that want to go a little more in depth on wildlife and wildlife tracking.
And then for bird books, a lot of people have their favorites. So I learned on Peterson. So this is my first love of bird books, but Sibley is great. There's a lot of really good ones. My only recommendation for a bird book though, really is to choose one that has drawings in it as opposed to photographs, because photographs are going to show you an individual bird and there's so much variation with the species within the species. But with the drawings, they actually try to highlight the characteristic that you want to look at when you're trying to identify. So they'll put little arrows in here pointing to the different details that are important so that you make sure you get the right bird. So I'm a big Peterson fan.
Let's move
But-
along to the plants.
Yes.
So we're gonna, in the city, it's really hard to identify trees and shrubs and plants because people plant whatever from anywhere around the world. When you go out into a natural area, it's a lot easier to identify plants. For instance, right here, there is our two trees, and they look,
I'll point
yeah,
to-
very similar. Mhm.
Yep.
And
It's totally backlit. so
Yeah.
it's gonna be really hard to see.
and so that over here is a big, huge Asian cedar.
This one.
But the needles look like a pine tree or one of our fir trees. So that's would be really confusing
yeah,
to come
yeah.
across in, but you wouldn't come across that in a natural area. But you come across. I have to go up to, okay. Well, no, that doesn't help. Okay. Anyways, I'm just gonna pull this down. This is, does anybody recognize this one or have any guesses of what tree this is? Native tree to the coastal Pacific Northwest, or actually all of the Pacific Northwest? Needles very soft all the way around the branch, and yeah, and all of the pine family generally is edible, but you have, like I said, you have to know what isn't a pine because that's the cedar family is not edible. It's very medicinal. Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Grab a whole sprig and bring it down.
So it's really important that you know the pine family.
Maybe the people
if
will
you're gonna
guess it if
be-
they see
Oh,
that.
you haven't told them yet?
No.
Okay. So I found a cone. Can identify.
Because people recognize the what
This is the way
looks
it's
like
hanging
legs
down.
and a
Yeah, it
tail.
looks like legs and a tail. There's a story about a big forest fire and the little mice running and trying to hide and climbing up into these cones. And then the tree saves them from the fire, but then they eat the seeds. So the tree gets angry and goes.
Yeah. Firs are in the pine family: pine, fir, spruce, western hemlock tree, which is pretty much a fir,
Mhm.
and yeah, so, and larches, yes. And so, can you grab the botany day?
Yeah.
The easiest way to identify plants is to know something about the families, or recognize that they are in families. And it can get really overwhelming when you start looking at all the families of flowering plants. So what I recommend is people get this book.
It's called
Botany in a
Botany in a
Day.
Day, but it's a lie. It's more like Botany in a Year.
Yeah.
But it's a really good book.
And
It's by Thomas Elpel.
and it doesn't get down necessarily to individual species, but it really describes what plants, what the characteristics of plants are in each family. And to not get overwhelmed, I always tell people just read the 2 or 3 pages on conifers, because
Yep.
we only have you know, in lowland, native lowland, Western Washington, maybe 6. And when you start going up to the mountains and the other side of the mountains, there's a lot more, but you know, it's not overwhelming. So Douglas fir is one. Western hemlock tree is another. And I always say Western hemlock trees, never say just hemlock, because then people think, what, hemlock is edible? Okay, I'll go eat some. And that's actually the carrot family hemlock plant, which is deadly poisonous if you know anything about Socrates.
Yep.
Um,
Did you talk about the edibility
No,
and
go
any more
ahead.
characteristics? Okay.
And I was gonna say Western hemlock tree, and then Sitka spruce. We have some in the yard. It's the only thing that grows in the Meeker Creek Restoration Project area. See, it's too wet for cedar trees to grow over there, and so the Sitka spruces and some of the deciduous
And there's
we're
some
going to show
pine
you
in
are
there
going to
too.
grow there.
Yeah. So anyway, to identify the Douglas fir, you're going to look for needles that go all the way around like these do. You're going to look for a cone that has that 3-pronged bract. And these little teeny buds have started to swell and open up. So they're not as pointy as they were before, but generally most of the year they're going to be tiny and red and pointy. And this is the only tree in our bioregion that has pointy red buds. So then,
awesome.
yeah. So what you want to know is if you would like to snack on it, it's super high in vitamin C, which is great. So you can just pull off the needle, stick it in your mouth. If you like the flavor, you can nibble it a little bit. You can heat up some water and throw some needles into that and steep it. And then you're gonna get some pine family.
Yeah.
Hot
And
infusion
just the needles, not the stems, because the stems
are a little
very
resinous.
resinous and astringent.
Yeah.
And it's again very high in vitamin C. If you know, pioneers and the sailors and everybody around the world had known prior to 1850 what caused scurvy, if they knew vitamin C were in the pine needles, they could just throw pine needles in all of your water, and or just suck on them,
Mhm.
and you have plenty of vitamin C until all year long. Or big vats of needles on a ship
That's
would
good
be,
right now.
just added to water and be fine. It kind of steeped in water.
Can I add something? So the
Sure.
number one thing that we tell our campers when you're talking about is don't ever put anything in your mouth unless you're 100% sure that it's safe to eat. So before you run out, make sure that, and make a hot infusion or tea out of this, or eat, just taste it, make sure that you have the correct plant. And so these field guides are going to help you identify which ones are the correct ones. So let's go here
Yeah.
next. And I wanted to show
Yeah,
this.
go for it.
Okay, so we are really fortunate in this bioregion to have one of the very best plant field guides. And it is called Plants of the Pacific Northwest Coast, which is a really, really long name. So we actually call it, the shortened name of this guy here, Pojar. We call it Poj.
Even though
So-
apparently it's actually pronounced Poyar.
But
We got corrected about 5 years
oopsies.
ago. But
Anyway,
we still call it Poj.
but this is by far we're so lucky to have this book. So if you're going to get a book, you can get them used as well, but make sure that you get the revised edition as
the
opposed
newest
to
edition,
the older one. Yeah.
And
just look
so
for
Botany in a
revised.
Day for like learning plant families. And this is your in the field plant guide for native and naturalized plants.
Yes. It's wonderful.
right.
And I will
And-
actually take this on backcountry trips with me because it's worth the wait.
So behind us, we have a very special tree. Does anybody recognize that one? You can say it out loud if you know it at any time. It's a native tree. And by the way, this is a very special tree for Kim and I. It is exactly 12 years old, 12 and a half years old now.
Mhm. There, I think
That's
we showed it
how
all.
tall growing out in the sun, plenty of sun and water, Western red cedar tree gets to be 12 and a half years because that was our wedding tree.
Yay.
It was just a little critter when we planted it.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah.
so let's talk about it.
And so cedar people here were made of them and still are of Western red cedar generally lasts forever.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, we are on the native lands of the Puyallup people here in Puyallup, the city of Puyallup, and just want to acknowledge that, as everybody should when we're doing public presentations. Got to that at the beginning. So cedar, were you gonna say anything else about cedar?
Nope, that's probably good enough unless somebody has questions about it more specifically. But it's not considered edible, it's a medicinal plant.
Okay, now we're gonna go to yard weeds, but before we do, does anybody
Yay.
have any questions about our native trees?
I have
And
a question about the cedar.
Yeah.
There was a nursery up on the hill that had way out that had a lot of native plants. And one of the guys, a young guy that was very passionate about the trees, said that cedar is struggling with all the new housing and developments that are going on in Puyallup. Do you see that as true? That they like more open,
well, cedar, I mean, just definitely a lot of them are getting cut down. So there's a fewer number because of all the, the rampant development in unincorporated Pierce County out toward between here and Graham. And there's more people in South Hill, which is unincorporated Pierce County, than there are in the city of Puyallup. And so that's just been a disaster for causing traffic and wiping out all sorts of native plants and everything all in that direction. And so that's why these greenways like the Meeker Creek Restoration Project and Silver Creek Restoration Project and others, Clarks Creek Park generally, are so important to have these reservoirs of native plants and that stay healthy. And so cedar, I don't know that it's any more, threatened than any of the other trees and such out about. The whole South Hill area, everything is all gravel up there pretty much. And so Douglas fir grows a lot better in those areas. Cedar likes kind of a mix halfway between full wetlands and they like it sort of wet but draining, like on a hillside where they're in the Pacific Northwest. When it's just sitting in the wetlands like this in the valley, Sitka spruce like it better. And it's all gravelly and water just perks really quickly through, like up on the hill here. Or up on the top of the hill, and Douglas fir really like that. So it kind of depends on the area.
But I support more cedar.
Oh yeah, we are
yeah.
advocates of some more cedar.
Definitely.
So now we're going to go to invasive yard weeds that are really important. Any other questions though about the native trees?
There's so many we could talk about.
Can you fire up the stove?
Right now?
Yeah. So we're going to start with one of our favorite right here. Does anybody recognize this little critter? It looks like a sunflower. Little mini little sunflower, which it actually is. I'm going to pick this one. The sunflower family is actually, the aster family, Asteraceae. And it's our largest plant family in North America, or northern part of North America. If you were studying botany in a day, if there were a botany in a day for the tropics, it would be mostly monocots or, like orchids and all those kind of flowers. But up here, the dicots, in particular, the aster family, there are, it's by far, if you ever are like, I don't know what family to look for this plant flower in, start in the aster family because it's probably in there. But it has hundreds, right, of flowers within the hour. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of people think that this is a weed, and a weed is just a plant growing where you don't want it, but actually it's an amazing plant for pollinators. It's a terrific food. There's a lot of benefits to it. And so I'm hoping that someday we can turn the tide from a completely manicured lawn to something that actually has plants that are beneficial to a wider variety of animals and insects and all of that. It's really, really important to decide that you love it instead of seeing it as something you need to poison. So anyway,
just put them all in one little area.
Yeah, you can. So if people would grow dandelions in their garden, they would get amazing roots out of them.
Again, in a little contained area of your garden. Don't let it go crazy in your garden. It's hard to get out.
You'll notice Chris is eating the yellow part of the flower. If you want to eat the flower, the yellow part doesn't have as much of the bitter flavor to it. So if you just kind of grab it and pull out the yellow part and eat it, it's actually incredibly sweet. It's wonderful. And the other thing to know is it looks like this little critter had hundreds and hundreds of petals on it, but actually every single one of those individual things that look like petals are individual flowers. This is like a flower cluster. All the members of the sunflower family, every single one from daisies to sunflowers to chamomile, all of that stuff. Those all have 5 petals on each flower, and they look like maybe 1 petal because they're all fused. But anyway, that's something you can learn in botany in a day. It's very interesting about the
Is it
aster
getting hot?
family. Oh yeah, it's
Okay,
it's
good.
getting hot. So the bitter part of the plant is going to be more the green plant. And remember, when you're eating your weeds, think about eating the part where the plant is putting its energy at the time. So in the spring, it's going to be putting its energy into the new green leaves. So that's going to be the part that you want. And then as the flowers start to grow, the leaves are going to get more bitter. The flower is going to be the part that you want. And then in the fall, it's going to turn to seed. And then in the winter, where does
And by the way,
everything go?
don't do this right out of
Down
a
into the
gravel
root.
driveway or someplace where it's like really struggling to grow. You wouldn't eat lettuce out of a gravel driveway. It would
Nope.
taste horrible.
Yep.
Again, if you have a little corner separated from your garden somewhere else where you're
Okay.
growing dandelions and you cultivate those, they're going to taste amazing. And the greens, you know, that kind of thing, until they get bitter, just like lettuce does when you let it go too long. My favorite way to eat aster leaves or flowers, though, is to turn it from just like a salady sort of nibble like that. By the way, the ends of the leaves, the flowers aren't as good as the base of the flower petals all in there. Is so good to get the sweet. But if you want to like delectable dinner item out of aster flower, and dandelion is a great example. Check this out. Got our little hot camp stove
Our
out
camp
here.
stove out, and we put a little bit of oil in it.
I would say butter or
Better.
butter is better, or
Oh, it's so ready.
something
Can I
that
put it on?
where you can really get it hot, like avocado oil.
Yeah.
Is even
Really
better
nice
because then you get it really hot. And we fry them upside down, just like this, with the
So
little stem
harvest it
on them
with a
to be
little
able to
stem
grab them
on it.
for,
And it's
I don't
actually
know,
really good with a little bit of salt on
60
it.
seconds.
Yeah, it'll start to look like it's a little bit browned.
And
And kids love these. We do this all the time at summer camp. The other thing you can do is pull out all the yellow petals or individual flowers and throw them into pancake batter or any sort of mix like that and cook them up. It's wonderful, and it's a really fun way to add some wild food. So
probably ready. One of them.
probably ready.
Here, I'll grab one.
It's going to be super hot, so be really careful. Okay.
So it turns it into like a dinner item because now you got some fat in there with your oil or butter or whatever. It's really hot at
I like it
first.
with a little salt on it.
And it turns into a really nutty flavor. And then you can eat a little bit more of it because it cooked a little bit of the green on the edge and stuff. It won't be, and it's not bitter at all. Oh my God, it's so good.
And just think, we have like millions of them out here in the yard.
Yeah.
And you can too.
And you
If you're
probably
really
do.
desperate and don't have any and want some, let me know and I'll save
Yeah.
some seeds and we can go blow them around your yard.
So you might notice behind us. Oh, let's do a couple more.
We were gonna
Weeds.
do it in
Okay, what else do you got in the
let's just
center
cover
circle?
these in-
Right here in our little center circle is our campfire circle where we do some get-togethers and such. I noticed that Matt Budzak is on the call to check it out this month because he's going to be your presenter next month, and he hangs out with us over here around the fire quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's great. So here's another one you might all recognize. This is a little English daisy. Once again, you can actually eat this. It's really crazy. It's funny how it's super sweet at the beginning and then it gets really tart. So I highly recommend. And once again, you want to harvest from a place that is not contaminated by things. So if it's next to the road, you might pass on that. And if it's next to your railroad, don't do that. If there's dogs going down the trail, you want to get it just out of dog reach.
Yeah.
Dog leg reach.
Oh, it's got about. Oh, we're gonna get to it. Is that over? Oh, you do. Oh, yeah, of course. Now it's you got to learn how to identify your weeds. Hey Matt, can you mute your phone? Because we're getting a lot of feedback from you. Thank you. Can't wait for your presentation next month. I think it's May 26th, if I recall right. Yeah, I think we're okay. Okay, so you have to be able to identify these weeds without the flower, obviously. They're not gonna be flowering all the time.
So
Are we still in good range? Can you hear us okay? Okay,
okay,
great.
great. Okay, so I want to show you this plant, and this is one of my very favorite medicinal plants. Now you can eat this. Some people that would consider this to be a survival food, but it doesn't taste very good. But what it is
More of a
it's
medicine.
So it's something that grows all over the place. And it's been mowed, so ours is looking a little bit sad. I'm just gonna harvest a leaf that'll look right, and we can stand up. Okay.
Closer.
We'll walk closer again. So there's two different varieties of this plant that grow in our bioregion. This is called plantain, and it's not the banana. So I'm going to bring it up kind of close so that you can see it. This is the lance leaf plantain, and then there's also broadleaf plantain. But the key to the plantain is you look for these big or these straight veins, so like parallel veins that run straight up the leaf. And it's a very important one to look up. So plantain is a very safe plant. It's even safe for kids. But what we use this for is for bee stings. So
Go for it.
how many people have been stung by a bee? Probably most of us. And if you never have been, I don't recommend it. But if you do get stung by a bee, find this plant. It doesn't matter if it's the lance leaf or the broadleaf, but you're looking for those parallel veins. And what you do is you harvest it and you stick it in your mouth and you chew it up.
And
it does not
Robin,
taste
if you want to
fantastic.
put us back on like, what do you call that?
that?
Featured person or whatever, so we can show these leaves up really
Okay.
close.
I'll show them how to use it.
Yeah,
Okay,
Kim's
so
gonna,
I'm gonna pretend I just got stung on the back of my hand by a yellow jacket. I stepped on a hive, one stung me, and I took off running. Okay, immediately found plantain, picked up, stuck it in my mouth. I know what you do. I know it's gonna be gross, but spit it out. You got a nice juicy blob of it, and you're gonna stick it right on that sting. Now the spit, your saliva is gonna help it stick, just like that. And within a minute, that sting is gonna start feeling better. It is amazing how it works. I've been stung up every summer, and I always go for plantain on all over myself.
kid
I-
approves
it's
every
kid approved,
time.
and you
Yeah.
know that if it didn't work, they would tell you about
Can you
it.
grab another one? Because I want to, now that we're on Spotlight, I can show this. Here's the hairy cat's ear, also known as false dandelion. You might notice it just has one main vein going through. And then a lot of times, I don't know if you can see it, but well, this is a little bit fuzzy, so you can tell it's false dandelion, which is also inedible.
It is
It's the one
also-
with the really taller, like
It is
flowers
also an edible.
and edible.
Not
Um,
inedible.
it's the one with the
an-edible.
tall
You can eat it.
stem and then a yellow flower, and everybody's like, "Is that a dandelion?" And it looks like it, but not exactly.
And they
anyways,
fry up beautifully too. We
yeah,
eat them all the time.
yeah.
There you go. So this is another.
So again, looking at the plantain,
Mhm.
it has parallel veins, like 5, one in the center, 2 on other side of it, going from the base to the stem. And it's there's round leaf and there's lance leaf,
And the
like
round
this.
leaf looks almost just like
But
it. It
the
just gets a
veins
little
are
bit
the
more
same.
broad. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
They go from the
but
base
it
to the
really is
stem.
amazing. And you can use it on wounds and stuff too. I've cut myself and chewed it up and put it on wounds and it heals faster. It's just wonderful. I put it in all my medicine.
And
Just about all my
fun
medicine.
fact, if any of you are constipated,
Oh,
and you go to the store and buy Metamucil,
yeah.
that
Mushroom.
is plantain seeds.
Yeah, well, it's psyllium.
Well, yeah,
Psyllium is the seed from a plantain, and it's not the same variety that we have here, but it still does the same thing for you. So
high
if
in
you have
fiber.
that need, you can use it for that.
All
Little
right.
did you know you'd learn about.
Behind, we have a lot of things going on here, by the way, tons of projects dug up and stuff like that. So if you might be wondering what's going on, like, anyways, but behind me is one of our gardens. Another one back over that direction.
And it's under the water. as you can
And
see
we
with the
can't
rain.
grow usually until May in here. We are considering doing like permanent raised gardens in here so we can plant earlier, but again, we're down in the wetlands, this farm is. And so you might notice there's still water in the troughs.
And there will be after
Yeah.
the rain this week for sure.
Yeah, so probably usually in early to mid-May, we start planting.
And we do a lot of stuff in pots too.
Yeah, but we do start a lot of things in our little greenhouse over here. You want to mention anything about the greenhouse and what's in? No, the calendula.
Yeah, the calendula started up. Yeah, so we just have a little greenhouse and we do a lot of starts because we can't plant out until mid-May. And you can see a bunch of dirt right here. We're just doing some fiddling around with the property, so it's kind of ugly right now. But yeah, we got a bunch of some plants that I've either started or have potted up out here. And then this is going to be an herb garden. And I've got, what I like to do is I like to try to save seed. And so I've got some carrots in here that did really well last year. And so I'm hoping they'll go to seed and I can save those this year. And then there's some herbs and the
Let's look at
calendula is doing really well.
There's the carrots coming back up.
Yeah, and so we get this question a lot. So we
Oh,
are
yeah.
very fortunate to have.
Yeah, does anybody recognize that so-called weed? It is kind of a weed because you can't really eat or do anything with it.
You can brush your teeth.
You can
with
brush your
it,
teeth with it
and you
though,
can clean pots
because it's
with it.
full of silica.
Mhm.
And so it's really good for brushing teeth, natural toothbrush.
I have definitely.
But don't
been
eat
contact
it.
Yeah, so that is called horsetail, and as far as we know, there's nothing you can really do to get it out of your yard.
Yeah,
so-
the way we deal with horsetail is just pick it once and it doesn't come back all summer long, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean,
and-
other ones keep coming up, but it's really easy to weed. You just up really fast
And the roots grow
toss
so
it
deep that
and don't
you
even
can't get rid
bother.
of it.
Yeah, because those roots are coming from potentially 6 or 7 or more feet down in the ground.
And if you
So-
break a root off, it can
Yeah.
just sprout from it. So
Mhm.
there's no reason to try to fight the horsetails. You just have to decide that you love them. I mean,
Yeah.
you can suppress them a bit, but I mean, they'll grow.
I
through
think it's
gravel
one
in
of the
middle
best
bark a lot.
weeds because it's so easy to weed. You
Yeah.
just pop them once and then it's gone. That particular one is gone.
So if you want to plant a really cool plant in your garden or in your yard, this is just starting to come up here. This is an avid self seeder. So it'll drop seeds in the fall and it will grow again in the spring. And I'm gonna just pick one. So you can see it. It's starting to close right now, but this is a calendula.
Hey, what plant family do you think that is? Look at how many petals, tons. Can't even count them.
Except they're not petals, they're individual
Individual flowers.
Yep. So this is in the Aster ACE or the Aster family or sunflower family. And so what's really cool about this, if you can grow some calendula and you can get the kind that's really, really sticky on the back, really, really resinous, it's amazing medicine. And so you can do all sorts of salves, lotions, and all sorts of things that are just good for your skin and very, very safe, unless you have an allergy to this kind of plant. Then that would be a problem. But other than that, calendula is wonderful and it's great for pollinators. And shock, you can eat it.
Almost everything that I know of in the Aster family flowers are fairly edible, but we
Mhm.
never say that
These are
because
more-
there's probably
More
exceptions.
flavorful. And if you throw a couple of petal or flowers from these into your salad, everybody's going to want you to bring salad to every possible.
Yeah, that
occasion.
is the most
it'll be
popular
beautiful.
flower
Oh,
for
man.
salads.
I wish we could have gotten the mustard family. Do you
That's
want me to
great.
just run back and
Yeah,
grab one?
grab some. Meantime, I just want to show you this. We've got some evergreen huckleberry starts that we're going to put out around a pond that we created. So this, all this stuff here is a mix of things. There's some mint, and a mix of native plants that we want to put in our zone 5, which is out on the edges of the property. Zone 4 is sort of a mix of native plants and our trees, like orchard trees. Zone 3 is like our garden area, not very far from the house, so we don't have any excuses to not weed. Zone 2 is like right next to your house. The things that you would grow like right out your door, if you have a south facing door, would be like basil, things that you cook with all the time would be like your zone 2, like right, or zone 1 right next to your house. So you kind of want it when you're planning out your kind of sustainable agriculture, the permaculture, you want to think about those zones and what's out on the edges versus what's up close. Kim's coming over with another plant that's flowering in your yard right now.
Maybe.
Another family. This is not Aster.
Not Aster. So you might notice. So these grow wild, and they're also you can buy the seeds and grow these different varieties of
And
plants. So
Farmers are really don't like them
Yeah,
because
so-
they take over the field.
if you look at the petals on there, I'll try to straighten it out. You'll see 4 petals. It's basically kind of an X shape. And if you go underneath the flowers, if you'll be able to see this, you'll find 4. Oh, I pulled one of them off already. You'll find 4 little. They almost look like leaflets at the base of the flower. Like if you've ever picked up, but just even the dandelion, or a buttercup, and you see those little green things underneath the yellow. These are called sepals. and-
Buttercup, not edible, is the most poisonous plant family
plant
pretty
family.
much in the
The
world.
buttercup isn't gonna. It tastes terrible, so it's
You'd-
not gonna be.
you'd
You wouldn't
never
eat
get
enough
it
to
down
hurt
your
yourself.
throat. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so what you're gonna look for is if you find a flower with 4 petals and they've got 4 of these little leaf-like things underneath, they're called sepals under the petals. And then you pull it apart and you look at the reproductive parts. You've got your stamens and your pistil. I don't have my glasses, so this is gonna be.
Yeah, we're seeing this
Like
about as
you.
well as you are due to being over 40 and not wearing our reading glasses. We're now
Okay,
over 50.
So if you had 4 petals and 4 sepals, and then you pull it apart, and the male parts are called the stamens. And if you split them all out, you're not going to be able to see this probably. Sorry, I should just
The-
diagram it. Well, anyway.
The point is
The point
getting
is
to,
if you have 6 stamens, 4 that are tall and 2 that are short, and a pistil, the female part in the middle. If you have that flower arrangement, you have a plant in the mustard family, which also includes broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts.
All of
and
which
those
are
yummies,
edible.
all of which are edible. So yeah, anything that you find out in the wild, and sometimes it might not taste fantastic. And this is in our bioregion.
Actually,
I can't say it for the whole world, but here in our bioregion, it's mustard family, and it's not going to hurt you. It's going to be fine to eat if you need to. But of course, like your cultivated plants will taste a little bit better. So there's a weed that grows all over called shotweed. So when you touch it, the seed pods explode and send the little seeds everywhere. I'll find some and show it to you. And that's also in the mustard family. So in addition to just pulling it, you can also enjoy eating it. So,
that kind of
bitter- it's called
concludes our
bittercress.
yard weeds,
Okay, I
and
show
yard
you
and
that?
garden weeds.
And this is the book.
Well,
that you
this
should
will
want.
conclude it. This is if you're really into the most nutritious yard and garden weeds and saving certain areas of your garden for certain weeds, get this book, Edible Wild Plants. There's 17 chapters.
Mhm.
Each chapter is one plant.
Yep. And they're wonderful.
One chapter on dandelion, one chapter on mallow, one chapter on false dandelion, one
Lamb's
chapter
quarters.
on lamb's quarters or
But what
wild
they
spinach.
do is they go through and they show you photographs of everything from the tiniest little starts to a full grown plant in all of the ages, tell you when to harvest it, give you recipes, tell you if there's any poisonous lookalikes, which is super important. So it's very in depth and it's really, really a good book.
Okay, that concludes our yard weed section. Does anybody have any questions about your weeds in your yard or garden? Just speak up if you do.
Yeah, 'cause we can't
we
see
can't see your
everybody.
hands or anything. So just sort of like unmute yourself and ask. In the
I
meantime,
just want to say you guys are both going to be really full by the end of the hour here.
the salad.
Chowing down.
It's good though. So
And,
continue on.
yeah. These are interesting right in your backyard sort of situation because a lot of this Puyallup Valley used to be blueberry and raspberry farms.
Yep.
Here's a remnant of this used to be a blueberry farm,
And if you bring it back, you can see how big it is. I mean, like
and it's probably
taller than me.
70, could be.
It's
who
older than
knows,
me. It's been
80
here my
years
whole
old.
life.
Who knows how old this are?
It's still
This
producing.
produces
beautifully.
all summer long. Absolutely incredible. We are lucky to have about 8 of them, which gives us all we need at farmers market when we're selling, and freezing what we need for the winter. This one right here, we planted 3 of these shrubs, which is a native, well, sort of,
Do you want me to talk about it?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
shrub.
So
This is,
it's our native nut.
Yeah.
And so you might have all heard of the hazelnut. Our native hazelnut is the beaked hazelnut. And the problem with it is that there is a disease. It's called Eastern filbert blight, and it will eventually probably impact pretty much all of our native nuts. But what's really cool is Oregon State University,
native hazelnuts.
all of our native hazelnuts, yes. Oregon State and probably some other universities at this point have created a kind that is a blight resistant. And so we actually have some native hazelnuts here on our land. And unfortunately they did have the blight. And once they get it, it looks like a series of little like spots or holes, almost like a sapsucker or woodpecker's pecked at it that runs down the branch, and you just cut it off and burn it. You don't want to send it to yard waste or anything like that. If you can help it, you could go garbage with it, but you can burn it too if you have that ability. But anyway.
So this is a cultivar from Oregon State University. You might know Filbert Acres down on Pioneer. They had to cut down all of their filbert trees 10 years ago. And then they planted all the new cultivar about 6-7 years ago. And as of a year or 2 ago, they are back to the farmer's market. Well, they do Proctor Farmers Market every Saturday, selling their filberts, which is the same thing as hazelnut. It used to be our native beaked hazel.
And if you're super into hazelnut, if you look at our website, we've got a video about it. And we've got a recipe of some things you can make with it. And
so if you go to wolfcamp.com and click on the blog, we have an entire blog post and long video about how to make hazelnut milk
and truffles.
And truffles out of like a dessert truffle.
Yeah, and it's a raw food, so you can eat it if you're paleo or gluten-free or whatever.
So the further south you go, the more native nuts there are. But this is really the only, and if you grab them before the squirrels and the jays and stuff get them, you can eat these green.
Yep.
The nuts.
You just
They
have to let your belly do
pollinate,
your
yeah,
thing.
they flower in December and January with tiny little flowers. Can't even see them
Yeah, it's a little
barely,
red
with
thing.
a catkin that hangs down. And then it kind of holds its pollinate or its fertilized, I guess, part in there. And then now is just going to start by June. It's going to have a nut developing on there. You can eat it green, or
Yeah.
protect them all the way till September with some netting or something, and
I know. We
or
had Jays
stay up
eat
all
all of
night
ours last
scaring
year.
the squirrels.
If you
and the
look
jays.
out and you see them,
Yeah, if you
just
see the
harvest
squirrels
them.
and the jays going for them, just get out
no,
there
don't even
right.
do that. If
Just
you see
go.
them and they look like they're full size
Oh,
and
well,
getting
that's true
ready, just get 'em.
Well, what I do is I look for the first jay or the first squirrel
Yeah.
going for them, and then I harvest them all that day.
And they'll brown up even if they start out green, and they'll dry, and they're great.
Look at this dandelion. Are you going to see right next to our garden? Get out of there. It's going into
Well, now what are you gonna do with
the.
it?
That's going into my pocket and
Okay,
then
you better
into the
take that out before we do lunch.
into the I don't know where, because I don't want that blowing right
Oh, I
into
wonder if
our
they can hear
front garden.
the
Oh
frogs.
yeah. So can you guys hear the frogs? Yeah, we're gonna get closer and closer. We built a massive rain garden that ends into a pond that I dug, so that we could get frogs going back in this area, which they did the first year pretty much. And then once the Meeker Creek Restoration Project was done, which now looks like a
Sure.
lot of willows and stuff, the frogs start over there in a week or two and go all the way into June. It's pretty amazing. Ooh, yeah, ducks.
Ducks fly over.
Anyway, so here's a few more of our back, like orchard, the old blueberries.
So yeah, we've got mulberries back here. This is called an autumn olive, which is a nitrogen fixer, and if not an
Yeah,
olive,
so kind of just a mix of kind of fun stuff that we cook here, along with the
some honeyberries.
mhm.
These little, this
honeyberries.
guy.
This
We've got some
is
crab apples.
native crab apple.
But we're taking
This
some-
was a street tree
Oh yeah.
that the conservationists in the city gave us to put out on the street, which we did. And then the next year they said, you have to take that out because we're putting in the new permeable sidewalk.
So, it took us
So
a
they were
long
going to just
time.
cut it down. And we were like, no, we planted it. So we transplanted it from there back into here. And it really loves it because it is a wetland loving tree. It grows on the edges of bogs and lakes and things like that.
Let's come along behind to
Yeah.
my favorite area.
Go back to our most important wild edible plant is coming up.
I hope
So
you're
may have
ready
any
for the-
questions before we launch into our most important second or two most important wild edible plants of the of our area?
Yeah, your friend's tractor. Oh, you see it?
Yeah, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
It's about consuming dandelions. So what would happen, or how would you deal with it if your stomach doesn't react too well from consuming dandelions?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful on everything that you might be allergic to or sensitive to. And so if you're sensitive to sunflowers, then you wouldn't want to you'd probably be careful eating anything from the aster family, because they're so, it's all the aster is the sunflower family. And so it could be that, some people are allergic to sunflowers. And so,
Yeah.
they won't eat those seeds.
They call it a ragweed allergy, I
Mhm.
think, is
Yeah,
it?
ragweed.
And the other thing too is that it might be the part of the dandelion that you've eaten, because once again, the greens are super bitter and sometimes people harvest them at the wrong time. So if you harvest at the
Yeah.
right time, it will have less of a bitter.
And down
know.
south, they roast up the root of the dandelion or the chicory, which is also very
It's in the
closely
same
related,
family.
same genus even. And it's a coffee substitute. They do half coffee,
Mhm.
half dandelion, or half coffee, half chicory root.
So you
Um,
can choose to either dry the root and
Roast
put it
it.
in boiling water and just have it make a
Oh, a
tea
tea.
out of it, a hot infusion. I don't think that tastes as good, but if you roast it in a cast iron pan.
There's
it's
some big
fantastic.
ones coming up or something.
Yeah, that's where
Okay,
we're gonna
great.
go.
All right, here's our
Did we answer that
most
question? enough?
fun. Oh
I don't know.
yeah,
I would say
sorry. if
always-
you
I
have
mean,
any
at that point, let your stomach be your guide
Yeah,
too. If
definitely.
it doesn't feel right, then don't.
Okay,
don't eat
does
it.
anybody recognize this plant, which most people, when they first, oh gosh, I just got,
Did you just get
Yeah.
it? Uh-uh.
most people are like, get rid of that. And ours is like, this is our most nutritious green that grows in North America pretty much.
See, I knew this white background.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Does anybody recognize that plant?
I'm guessing thistle at this point.
Or nettle.
No.
Is
In-
it's
I mean,
great that-
nettle, nettle.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Nettle. Yeah. By the way,
Yeah.
thistle is in the aster family. Nettle
is.
is in its own family.
Yep.
And so, yeah, and you might notice Kim didn't get stung. Why is that, Kimmer?
That is because I know the secret to the nettle, and you shall know soon as well. So the secret is, so let me just get a good leaf on here. So the secret is that the leaf is a heart shape, and the hairs that are going to sting you, they're hollow, so it's like a hypodermic needle. And at the base of the hair is the acid combination that goes through the hollow hair and creates the welts and the pain under your skin. So the secret is that the hairs don't stick straight out of the leaf. They actually, it got darker. They don't stick straight out. They actually angle down the leaf. And so if you want to touch it without getting stung, if you start at the top or where the cleft of the heart is, and you
Base.
rub down
To
where
the tip.
where the stem is down to the tip, then you're not going to get stung. If you rub the other direction, then you definitely could get stung. And if you want to grasp one or harvest it to eat it raw, all you do is you hover your fingers above and below the leaf that you want to harvest. Can we show it on a real plant? And
You can see it.
so the important thing to know is when you're going to grasp your leaf, you just have to do it. If you're kind of wimpy about it, like, oh no, it's going to sting me, then it's probably going to sting you because you're going to bump up against it. So you select a leaf you want to harvest and you just pinch. And then
before you pull, grab the other side, the stem from the other side, because the other thing is if you don't, there you go, grab two.
So
and
what
pull
happens
opposite
is when people
directions.
try to pull it, they
Some
either
other
get
leaf.
stung, like this goes over the top and gets the top of your hand. Can you bring the screen down a bit, husband?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Or else the leaves underneath are going to get the back of your hand as you're trying to pull it off. So you can hold an opposite leaf and then you can pull off the one that you want. Now, some
Normally we cook these or
yeah,
dry
so-
them and
so if you dry
use
them or
them in
cook them,
tea.
it eliminates its ability to sting you. So if you want to run it through a food processor, you can make a raw nettle pesto, or you can just
Yeah,
blanch it really
substitute
fast.
basil or nettle for
For
basil,
basil.
and it's very tasty. The reason being is because the stuff that stings you
It's actually good for you.
is all the like ascorbic acid and all the different and amino acids, proteins and stuff that is good for you nutritionally, but you don't want under your skin. It's like squeezing a lemon into a
Stem.
cut. You don't want to do that,
Okay, so
but you do want to eat lemon.
So sea nettle is one of our most nutritious plants that you can get in this bioregion. And so you can do a hot infusion with it. So you can pack it into a jar, add boiling water to it, let it steep. You can as little as 10 minutes, as long as overnight, and then drink it. And it's a tonic herb. But if you want to eat it raw, you harvest it just like I said. And then to get those hairs off so you don't get stung in the mouth, oops, sorry, here's what you do. So you basically take your hand and run your hand down the leaf, and all you're doing is using that mechanical action to break the tips off of the hairs. And so after a while you figure, well, I don't know if I got them off or not because I can't see it. So what you do is you eliminate half of the hairs by folding it in half. So we're hiding half of the hairs inside of it. And just remember, don't fold it this way or else you'll have half the hairs going the wrong direction. You're going to fold it the long way, like a Valentine, and you can give it another little bit of a rub. And so it really is breaking the hairs off, I promise. It's a little bit scary. So then what you do is you take a deep breath and you roll it into a ball. And so you're going to smash it in between your fingers. You can smash it between rocks if you wanted to and get it a little bit juicy. And then your last line of defense is your molars. So you stick it in your molars and then down the hatch. And it's got a wonderful green flavor to it. Please don't eat it raw without eliminating the hairs or cook it. It's great in lasagnas, pastas, all sorts of things cooked. I've got a great recipe that I'm going to do for nettle cakes, and I make a great nettle soup. It's fantastic, but really, really good. And then if you want to harvest it to use it at home, you can wear gloves and just use a scissor
yeah,
too.
for
You
sure.
don't have to barehand it.
So if you have any questions later about like where to harvest nettle from, to dry it for making tea, I drink the tea every day in the spring because it's a immune system adaptogen, and it just levels out allergies. Like it calms down allergies big time. And I'm super allergic to this grass, which is reed canary grass, which is an invasive, horrible invasive from Africa. Kind of all the big animals evolved to eat it, and it takes over all our wetlands and knocks out all our native plants. As a survivalist, I love it because all grasses are edible. Has a big leaf that's actually quite tasty. The seed is tasty, just like, by the way, all of you have probably eaten grass today. Oats, wheat,
Sugar,
sugar, it's all grass family. It's like our,
corn,
corn,
rice.
it's all rice, and reed canary grass, but we really shouldn't have this growing here. So we have cut out, or should I say, managed to tamp back reed canary grass like big time. It doesn't like being mowed, fortunately. So if you mow, it doesn't tend to live. The other, we're not going to go into it, but over there you can see our pond where the frogs are, right? And if you walk along the sidewalks of 14th Street Southwest,
You can see the cars.
you can see the pond, which is our frog pond. And we have a bunch of cattails in there,
And
which
rushes.
is the #1 most nutritious carbohydrate, the root of the cattail, but we're not going to do that today because it's too much time and big process. Again, you can go to our blog or YouTube page, and we have a good like 20-minute video on cattails and how to
And they
cook them up.
taste
And
really good. If you like
It's like a potato.
potatoes, a little different, but it's still really, really good.
we have like a native elderberry right here and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, let's go over to the porch. Oh yeah, Sitka spruce. We have our Sitka spruce up here. We're cutting out because it's shading our orchard and it's split into 4 at the top. So it's getting kind of dangerous. But we've got another one over here. And this one, it looks just like the Douglas fir. Like if you're just looking at it on a camera, but if you grab it, it hurts. So that's how you identify spruce, but they're just as edible.
Oh, you had some up here. I
Yeah,
wasn't
so-
thinking. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
So I'm gonna eat one of those just for a little more.
Yeah, and you just have to be a little more
Vitamin C.
careful.
Not
If you're gonna,
eat, just
if you're
suck on
gonna
it.
put it in your mouth, just suck on
Yeah,
it.
it's very
Um,
sharp.
Yeah, it is incredibly sharp, but it's really good tasting. So for people out there who don't like tea, I'm not a huge tea drinker, but I do love the taste of these guys. I'll just throw a couple needles into whatever tea I'm drinking and it makes it taste really, really good.
Yeah, is there, oh, and yeah, so out here, same place where the pond is over there. Right here is our orchard. And so if you want to stop by on any Sunday in June, July, or August, we'll probably have our farm stand out there and we'll partially just sell what's there and partially do a little U-pick along the edges. But eventually this will be a U-pick blueberry and all sorts of other, and strawberries
So
and
the fruits that we have out there, we
and
have
trees. Fruits, we have
plums,
plums, apples,
pears,
pears. I'll just repeat Kim. Pear,
gummies,
apricot.
peaches,
Not,
apricots,
they don't do very well, but
yeah, and cherries.
yeah.
So a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
some blueberries mixed in between.
Oh, and yeah, we
some
just
little
planted,
blues.
if you walk along there,
Yeah, we talked about that. at the beginning.
Asian pears.
Oh, that's right, our new
Yeah.
Asian pear row.
That's
Mhm.
just inside the fence. We had to put up a fence because there were no deer down here in the wetlands until we put in cherry trees.
I think they
And
came.
then all of a
just for our
sudden
cherries.
they had like this sixth sense that there were cherry trees. And so they destroyed all our cherry trees like in one go. I mean, they didn't
We
destroy them.
accident- Yeah.
They pruned them down to a nub because they love eating cherry tree stems.
So that's one of the benefits though of having the restoration next door is we do get to see deer here and some
Coyotes,
other, yeah, we get coyotes, which
raccoons,
we think are beautiful. Possum.
weasels.
Yeah, the weasels are
um,
cool. A lot of rabbits.
They're all through here every
Mhm.
night. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we have it fenced off now. That's not because, well, I guess eventually those trees are going to get crazily valuable. So I guess
Maybe.
maybe I didn't think about that, but
Well,
mostly
anyway,
they were
it's
for the deer at first.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the tour.
Well, wait, don't forget about my favorite,
What?
the bees.
Oh, of course, except for some animals.
Yeah,
So
do
does
you-
anybody have any questions on plants before we show you our,
My little bees.
we're going to probably just do our bees, not chickens, not rabbits.
Unless you really want to see my chickens.
Yeah, we
but-
could go into more animal and all the
I-
wild.
I just want to say we have to wrap up by 8 because there's another meeting coming on at 8, but if
Right.
any,
Okay.
but
let's
that's
do-
about
ask.
15 minutes away, so.
Sounds good.
And then
Yeah,
we
we
can take
wanted to.
questions and if someone wants to. see
The
it.
last stop is the mason bees.
Sweet.
Do you do anything with mushrooms?
Not really, no. Kim's not a mushroom lover, and I decided when I was getting into into teaching all this back when I thought I might know enough when I'm in my 60s to start some sort of school like this 25 years ago. Mushrooms is another kingdom of life, just like plants, animals, and algae and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, oh, someday I'll start learning mushrooms, but I haven't gotten there yet.
I think we will, but
We do have a
don't.
good blog post on the 5 mushrooms that we are the safest edible mushrooms in our area
just
that a
had
friend of ours put together with us.
Morels come up, I think. I live down in the valley, not too far from you, and we had wood chips delivered last year, and they're coming all up in that. And as far as we can tell, they're true morels.
Mm,
We
wonderful.
Yeah,
split them
we've
in
had some
half and they're
here.
hollow.
Yep.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm hoping they come back next year.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to talk really, really fast. The last thing I know, but
Push that back.
before we show it,
Okay.
say something about it.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, anyway, here's our mason bee house. For those of you who have gardens or any fruit trees, mason bees are incredible pollinators. And so they are a solitary bee, and most of the bees out there, like 90% of bees, I think, are solitary bees. And they are really cool because they're incredibly docile. They do have a stinger. They could sting you, but they just don't.
Here comes
Oh,
one
here
now.
comes one. I don't want to move. Oh, buzz in my head.
Oh.
Anyway,
It's going to go
it's
right in
gonna
front of the
go on the
camera. No,
computer.
it's not.
uh,
Okay.
anyway, so mason bees are incredible pollinators. So I was at one of the classes to do honeybees, and they had a guest speaker from a company called Crown Bees, and he came in and talked about them. And mason bees pollinate even more efficiently than honeybees do, and it's based on how they store the pollen. So what happens is,
By the way, they also go nest right in the holes of our old house right there. They're as great mason bee habitat.
yeah, so you don't actually have to even get a house. You just, or a bee house, you can be lucky enough that they'll like your house, a little crevice there. So what happens is you can buy these little tubes, and what they'll do is the solitary female, when she comes out of her cocoon, the male is waiting there. He'll mate with her, and then she'll go off and she'll get a bunch of mud, and she'll fly into the tube, crawl all the way to the back, make a mud wall, and then she'll go out and she'll start pollinating flowers. So they have a bunch of hairs on their abdomen, and they just rub their little abdomen all around in the flowers. And so that's why they're such great pollinators. And then they fly back to the hive, or back to their home. There comes another one. And they'll crawl into the tube, and they will build up all the pollen in there. It forms a pollen pad. And then when they're done,
Right now. Got a little butt coming in. And
Oh, right there.
There's a couple of them.
there's one over there. Oh, here comes one.
I'm flying in.
Yeah, I hope y'all can see it. Super cute. Anyway, so then what they'll do is they'll lay the egg on the pollen pad, and then they'll go get mud, and they'll form a little wall of mud. And then they'll lay egg after egg until the tube is complete. They'll cap the tube, and then they'll go to another tube. But what's really cool about them is they lay the females first, and then they lay the males last, because the males hatch out before the females do. So the males will hatch out from the entrance to the tube, come out and wait. And then when the females come out, the males will mate with them, and then off they go. So it's really amazing. And then all you do is, once your tubes are filled, you pull it out and you keep it in a little mesh bag to keep parasites and stuff out of it, like a bucket. And then you can harvest the cocoons, keep it in your refrigerator, and then the next spring, oh, there's somebody in the actual, oh, look at this. The next spring, you put your cocoons in a little tray. You can see there's one right here. Pretty cute. Put them in the tray, and then you'll see there's a whole bunch of them down here that are opened up, and they hatch out, and then they crawl out through this little hole. Don't come out yet. And yeah, that's how you do it. So it is they're super efficient because they don't travel as far as honeybees do. They're going to pollinate your yard and not everybody's yard. They don't produce honey or anything
Yeah,
like
we
that.
kind of have to have them to pollinate the orchard, especially all these early flowering, plums. And if these mason bees weren't here, we probably wouldn't get
As
almost
much
any fruit.
produce. Yeah, they're really, really good.
So that kind of concludes our tour. We didn't go into any wildlife tracks along the edge of the wetlands or anything
But there
like
are some
that,
deer
but-
tracks over there by the stinging
Mhm.
nettles.
We were tempting, but we thought we'd better blow through. So we get
Yeah.
done by 10 minutes to here in case there are any questions before you had to log off.
Can we make everybody?
Oh, that would be Robin. You
Oh,
have
okay.
to-
So we can see everybody.
Yeah, if you want to switch to speaker view or sorry, gallery view, then you can see everybody. I do that too.
Hey guys, so I just wanted to say that I thought that was really awesome, and I learned a lot, and it was really, I enjoyed watching it, and that I want to give a lot of props to you and Kim for that little bee house right there by the door. That's I thought that little house had a some kind of cover, some kind of cover, next, like covering the thing so the bees don't come out. And I was like, wow. So they just come right out, and so yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Thanks, Matt. That was Matt Budzak, everybody. Or you guys' next speaker
Mhm,
in
and his
May.
dog Max. Oh, and that's
And
why
his
we
dog
put a little
Max.
sign on it
Yep.
when UPS drops off packages to just let them know, please enjoy watching them. They will not sting you. They won't. They're great.
Okay. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, because I know a lot of I know a lot of people are really afraid or even allergic to bees. So whenever they come even see a bee, they're like, I'm out of here, So yeah, so thank you for that education about them. I think that's really important.
You bet. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Or Robin, do you need to wrap up or anything like that?
And we can.
Oh, I see
I
somebody
think
has.
we can take a couple more questions.
Yeah, Sherry had her hand up there, or finger up.
Sherry, you're muted. There we go.
I have purple nettle in my yard.
Gosh, I
Do you
just-
know? You guys know what that is, don't you? Of course you know what that is. I have purple nettle. Yes? No?
So there's something, does it have purple flowers on it and purple
Yes.
on the Yeah,
Yes.
so that's called either purple dead nettle or common dead nettle. It just depends. And
Whatever.
the reason it's called dead nettle is because it's actually not in the same plant family as the nettle. It's a mint. And so it's called dead because it doesn't have a sting to it.
Okay.
So it's totally fine. It's a safe plant. People will eat it. People will feed it to their pet rabbits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mint family, pretty much everything in the mint family is edible or medicinal because some of them are so strong.
Okay.
And
Okay.
you can feel the stems and they're square.
square.
That's the dead giveaway that it's, so to speak, in the mint family. Nettles are also kind of square, but they have stingers on them. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And isn't that good for allergies and
A
sinus?
sting-
Dead
stinging
nettle?
nettle, yes, not so much. I don't know about the mint family. Mint's more of a for refrigerants, not necessarily all
Not
of
a
them. but-
but I don't know
Stinging nettle
that
is-
dead
stinging
nettle
nettle is
is good for it.
Yeah.
It's completely different plant family, completely different properties.
Yeah, I would have to look that up to see what people say about dead nettle, which is a mint, and allergies, but I have not heard that. I've only heard stinging nettle, and it works
Okay.
for me real well.
Okay.
Yeah, once it's dried and then turned into a tea.
Okay.
And we have a video about how to draw it, like everything.
Yeah, we
about
have
it, don't
tons. Our most
Yeah.
popular blog posts and videos are nettle on nettles. We get like hundreds of hits every day on those blog posts there, which Kim wrote. Props to Kim.
Yay.
So I just have one question. Is this video that you guys just did, will it be posted like on YouTube or?
Yeah,
Yes.
Robin, what do you do with your?
Yeah, the church has a YouTube channel. It's if you search for FCC Puyallup on YouTube, you'll see all our speaker series and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
When we post it, maybe we can put up some of these links that you guys are talking about, or the links to your website. So yeah, Sarah just put up our YouTube channel.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, and I just before we ran out of time, I also in the description I noticed there was a lot of comment or a lot of description about heartfelt wisdom and stuff, and so thought I'd end with some heartfelt wisdom that, it's been a tough, couple of years for everybody, and sometimes a tough lifetime. And so just getting outside, when it's raining, get outside. When it's beautiful, take some time off and go outside. And we're very fortunate in Puyallup to have some of these incredible parks like Clark's Creek Park that are full of native trees, plants, shrubs, animals, the artesian springs that feed that's why the fish hatchery is located there, that are just bubbling up out of the ground everywhere. And over by the fish hatchery right now, there was one heron nest, I think, when we moved in 12 years ago, and now there are 40 that you can visually
There's
count
50.
40.
We know there's
counted,
over 40.
Oh, sorry, we counted 45 the other day visually, and there's some that are hidden you can't really see. And they're full of all the herons are just coming out of their eggs and growing. They grow about a foot a day.
It feels
It
like.
feels like. And the eagles are crazy this year going after the heron eggs and stuff. So you'll see tons of eagles and heron over by the fish hatchery if you head over there.
There's so
And we're
many
really
things,
lucky in the
though.
area.
Yeah.
So get out there. And you will also feel some heartfelt wisdom that we can't give you, but nature can.
Well, that's great. Good ending and segue. I wanted to just tell everybody about, you're going to have some accessible hikes coming up. Is that starting in
Thank you.
May?
Yeah, we, Matt Budzak and Kim and I are leading accessible Northwest natural history hikes once a month. First one's going to be on Earth Day, the inaugural
That's right.
Northwest Natural History Hike and Earth Day at Wildwood Park, which is right in Matt's backyard. So he knows a ton about that park, and we're going to provide some of the plant and bird type stuff. Matt and I will probably take the fast hikers, and Kim and Jeffrey Bird will probably go with the slow people that want to look at every single plant. And then we're going to do monthly ones and different accessible hiking trails in the area, starting after that in May and June and beyond.
Okay. Well, I love you guys' passion, and obviously you are in the right place. You are living in the right plot of land on this earth, and I'm just excited to see you guys doing that. I think we could probably have you back and have a whole nother presentation, but we have to wrap up, unfortunately. But I want to just remind everybody that we are taking a free will offering that will go to our next speaker, which is Matt Budzak. He'll be our speaker on May 26th, 6:30 on the same Zoom link. So if you'd like to join us for that, we would love to have you. You can watch for more information about that on Facebook, and I'm sure Chris will help us promote that too. And we are taking that free will offering at the church website. It's in the chat, but of course we're going to drop off here in a second. But it is FCC Puyallup, which is First Christian Church, fccpuyallup.com/donate. And I guess we will see you all next month. I really appreciate this turnout and you guys' knowledge and expertise and passion. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Good night.